Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Tuathamar7 of www.notthetimcurrystudios.com. Looking forward to the next video that we're about to start. We have finally gotten through the entire common route, that is, the route that is common to all four of the possible choices for Akito, and then the two smaller routes, which are for two characters each. We are about to start on one of the paths that is specific for one person, and that is Saya. As I mentioned in my other videos, I am going to be going through the endings in the order that I liked in my first playthrough of this game from least to best. And Saya is obviously then my least. I don't want to get too much into describing why until after my video, but I do want to say that it was a surprise to me when I was first playing this game, because I really, and as I said even in this replay, I loved how they built up to her storyline. But anyway, before moving on to this story as well as to the others, I just kind of want to set the tone for what is coming up. We've gone through a lot of story already, but there is in each of these paths a great deal more to come. And in fact, there really is kind of like two storylines for each person. There is the love story that occurs between Akito and the girl of his choice. And then there is the astronomy story that occurs behind that. And really, it's almost like they don't even overlap in all cases. So there's you can almost say there's going to be two parts to each one of these that I'm going to rate each of these persons on at the end. So the love story and then the astronomy story. So let's go ahead and get started with this one. This one is going to, if my memory is correct, it's going to start off kind of funny, because I do believe that he's already ready to tell Saya his feelings, but I don't think he's going to get a chance, if my memory serves correctly. So let's go ahead and see if I'm correct. Saya is the one. I can't complain about her looks. She has a good personality, too. She's thoughtful and sensitive. Most importantly, instead of running away from me like every other girl, she accepts me as I was. There really isn't anything for me to worry about. It was plain and simple. I would have a beautiful girlfriend that everybody would be jealous of, and that was what she wanted too. That would make me happy. Well, it's simple. I'll tell her yes. It's going to be great from here on out. Whoa! I nearly jumped from the mention of my name. I cleared my throat and turned around. Hi, Saya. Nah, it's okay. I just got here myself. I had arrived 30 minutes before, but deep in my thoughts, I had lost track of time. Saya, Saya quickly stopped me when I got the courage to start talking. She pleaded, looking up at me, so I shut my mouth. Saya went quiet and took a few deep breaths, and then suddenly her breathing increased. After her breathing calmed down again, Saya had a hint of determination in her eye as she talked. Before, what was she talking about? Was she talking about the kiss?
あるって言ってもほとんどないのと同じくらいだってことは。でも全くないのとほんのちょっぴりでもあるのとは違うから。
Saya was looking down, flushed red from being so embarrassed.
そのほんのちょっぴりのせいで気持ちの制御ができなくなっちゃったんだと思う。
Kissed me. Saya went beet red, but so was I probably. I'd never been so embarrassed in my life that just thinking about it makes me lightheaded.
でもね、違うの。あれはね、そういうんじゃないの。
Wasn't like that? Are you saying that you don't like me? Saya feverishly shook her head.
気持ちを伝えたかっただけ。私の気持ち、ハクに知っててほしかった。
Well, you did, and unlike 4 years ago, I accept it. Hearing what I said, Saya looked up with a sense of relief. That's why I want to give you a real answer now. So I wouldn't seem careless, I straightened myself up, and Saya just shook her head.
だからもういいの。
Okay?
それで十分だから。気持ちちゃんと伝えられただけで。明日からはまた前みたいに接してほしい。
What are you talking about? I can't do that. I already knew how she felt. Don't hold back, Saya. Saya always held herself back to do what Hickory and I wanted. I didn't want her to wait or hold back anymore.
我慢じゃないよ。ダメなんかじゃない。だって好きだって気持ちがちゃんと伝わったなら、それだけでもう十分すぎるくらい幸せなんだもん。知っててもらえるだけでいいんだもん。
Saya?
それにあっくん優しいから。こんな私のこと面と向かって振るなんてできないでしょ。
Nothing came out after hearing that. She really did know me.
今あっくんに OK って言ってもらえても私素直に喜べないや。
I guess she thought I was just unable to turn her down. If I agreed to go out with her, no matter what my true feelings were, she would always be in doubt. She thought that I would say it out of pity.
それに今はダメだよ。
Right now?
だって今はがいないもん。私また抜け駆けすることになっちゃうよ。
Sai buried her face in tears, mumbling something that I couldn't hear, and then she became quiet. So I'm not allowed to say how I feel? Saya just shook her head.
付き合うって言われても信じられないし、振られるのはもっと嫌だ。
What an honest person. Isn't that a little unfair? I get to know your feelings, but you don't get to know mine? She turned away in frustration. I guess she didn't see it as unfair. All right, fine. I sighed. Thinking about how Saya held on to those feelings for 4 years, I thought it was only natural punishment for me to agonize over mine for a while. All right, we'll go back to how it always was. Is that okay? I subtly implied. I didn't really think that was going to be easy.
そうして。
I took one step closer to Saya and abruptly reached out my hand. And Saya took one step back in shock. Don't start running away from me. You wanted me to be normal, right? Or are we going to act differently now? I tried to jokingly scare her.
やだ。
Hmm? Saya started to tear up and put her head on my chest. I just stroked her hair. Good girl, good girl.
照れるよ。
Endure, it's embarrassing for me too. We kept this up for a while and then I let Saya go. Saya looked like she just got out of a sauna. Her face was red and she sighed deeply. Do you really think you can keep going on like nothing happened? She kept turning back and forth. It was like she couldn't make up her mind. Hey now, don't stop.
もしだよ。他に好きな人ができたり、もういたりするなら。
As she paused there, she looked up at me. It was like she was asking if there was somebody.
私のこと気にせず付き合ってくれていいからね。それが今まで通りってことだから。
I frowned down at her.
なんでそんな顔するの？
It's nothing. Even though she had asked me out, it felt more like I was being dumped. Fine then. Only if there's a girl that likes me.
いるよ。アキトくんかっこいいもん。すぐにいい人見つかるよ。
Yep, somehow it really did feel like a breakup. Twist, twist, twist.
何するの？
Just practicing how to be normal. I said bluntly, walking forward.
待ってよ、アキトくん。
Saya followed me as she fixed her twisted and mangled hair. And that's what happened. That had been about 10 months before. After that, it wasn't like we could just go back to normal, even though we had been friends for a long time. Every time I thought about it, it just felt awkward. But slowly I got used to it. Over time, things were getting back to normal. Right now, at first glance, we were just friends. Since then, Saya had never outwardly showed me how she had felt for nearly a year. It was getting to the point where I was beginning to doubt how she felt about me now. That was a risky joke.
どうかした？
Nothing. By the way, did you hear anything from Hickory? She shook her head.
メッセージを送ってもずっと未読のままになってる。
Me too. I wonder what happened to her. Hickory was overseas. We hadn't seen each other in the entire time, but we were still keeping in contact over the net. We'd send messages, chat on the phone, and talk in the Six Stars Club group chat as well. But a few days earlier, we'd lost contact. The internet over there wasn't so good, so we would lose connection sometimes, but this was the longest we'd gone without talking.
何かあったのかな？
I was worried too, but we had no other way of getting in touch with her. Let's find out her family's contact info. Maybe if we ask Noriko, she'd be able to tell us.
そうだね。
As we were talking, the bus arrived at our stop. We stopped right in front of the door labeled Astronomy Club. We knocked and waited for a moment.
Hi!
The door opened from the inside and I entered the room. Excuse us.
こんにちは、スラミくん。い
Thank you, Hanukkah.
らっしゃい、アキミ。
Corona came with Hanukkah to greet us. Hey, Corona, you seem good.
元気だよ。さやさん、山田さんのご足労ありがとうございます。お邪魔します。失礼します。ひなみ、いらっしゃい。天の川先輩も一応いらっしゃい。
Corona added that with a hint of dissatisfaction. Corona had come a long way. At least now she was capable of saying hello to Saya.
こんにちは、コロナちゃん。ほんと、ひなみ、元気だった？まずまず。コロナはあんまり元気そうじゃないね。なんでわかるの？から元気なのが顔に出てる。あははは。周りがお嬢様ばっかりでさ、庶民の子が来るような学校じゃないんだよ。また言っているのですか。いい加減慣れたらどうです？だって。
It seemed like Corona was suffering too. Well, you look good in your school uniform.
本当？コロナもそう思ってるんだ。やっぱ元が可愛いと何でも似合っちゃうのかななんて。
Corona wiggled into a pose and looked my way. I avoided her gaze. She had just entered Maiku Academy this year. This was the road that she had chosen, but I'm sure that joining the Six Stars Club and meeting Orihime and Hanuka had something to do with it. She had joined the astronomy club right after she had entered the school and had been doing activities with Hanuka.
いいな、ひなみんはアキ兄と一緒に部活できて。楽しい。特に昼間、太陽黒点の観測をしている時が。黒点なんか見たってつまんないじゃん。地味だし全然綺麗じゃないし。黒点がある日突然巨大化して地上にとてつもない磁気嵐が吹き荒れる様を想像してみて。ね。いや、ねって言われても。そんな大異変の兆候が今日にも現れるかもしれない。そう思うとほらドキドキするでしょ。全然。やっぱひなみん変わってるね。
They might be completely different, but they did get along well. Where's everybody else?
もう来るはずです。どうぞくつろいでいてください。コロナ、お茶入れてくるね。私も手伝う。
And the first years went off to make tea. Then we waited for the other schools to show up.
それでは第11回むつらぼし定例会を始めたいと思います。
That's how the current president, Hanuka, started the meeting. There were 5 different schools gathered in Maiku Academy's astronomy room.
では各校の活動状況の報告をお願いします。まずは西高さんから。
はい。
Toyota, Nishihai's current president, stood up. He was a pretty quiet-looking boy.
うちは先週遠出して富士山をバックに成形写真を撮影してきました。天体ガイドに投稿したので、もしかしたら来月号に載るかもです。
Toyota looked proud of himself when everybody seemed amazed. For the most part, Nishihai's focus on gadgets had been because of his focus on taking photos of celestial bodies.
それでは諸見沢工業さんどうぞ。
うっす。俺らは秋の星座の官房と星座神話をモチーフにしたポエム作りをやってました。
Kanawa Kajima, the president of Moromusawa Astronomy Club, sounded tough, but if you listen to what he was talking about, he did seem a little rough.
秋の夜空といえば星座っす。エチオピア王家の物語を星空に描き思いを馳せるのは俺らモロコ天文部の最も楽しみにしてることっす。
But his topics were just so girly.
いつも素敵なポエムの投稿をありがとうございます。むつらぼしブログの読者から今月も感想をいただきました。
恐縮っす。
They posted their poems on the blog every month, and a few of their fans had left their impressions. I was fairly certain that those fans thought that it was girls who were writing the poems, though. It was a tradition for Morimisawa to observe the constellations and do something romantic about them.
では聖戦女子さん。はい。
Saya stood up.
私たち聖戦女子天文部は諸見沢工業天文部の皆さんから送っていただいた神話ポエムにイラストをつけていました。
あざーす。
Kawana Kajima stood up, yelled and bowed suddenly, scaring Saya.
あと私も時々星野第一天文部の皆さんと天体観測をしていました。以上です。いつも素敵なイラストをありがとうございます。と部員の方々にお伝えください。おかげでサイトが華やぎます。
The Sison Girls Astronomy Club designed the Six Stars Club's mascot and drew illustrations of it.
では星野第一さん。
Okay, we've been observing sunspots during the day and have gone looking at the stars every now and then. Sunspots are observed during the daytime, so it was something easy for students to do. I didn't know how to reply to Corona's dissatisfaction with them, but once you started it, it was quite addictive. Besides, you could use those daytime techniques to look at Venus and Mercury. It definitely was something an astronomy club should do. And anyway, it was a good chance to let Hinami do some astronomical activities.
それでは最後に、私たち明光学院天文部ですが、先月同様、惑星観測を継続してやっています。
After Maiku Academy's report, we were all done. Noriko had retired in the summer, and since they didn't have any new people, Amahai's astronomy club was suspended due to no active members. Nishihai's Naru and Morimisawa Kasaiki had also retired, but those two schools had younger members to take over their clubs. Everybody was seriously short on members and were barely doing any activities now. After each school had reported in, it was time for the Six Stars Club report.
すでに資料はお送りしていたと思います。
Everyone took out their phones or tablets and pulled up the documents that Hanukkah sent. It contained all of the Six Stars Club's achievements and blog traffic information for the last month.
アクセス数だいぶ減っちゃったね。
目立った活動がないですからね。
When we had posted the manufacturing journal of the Pallades 1, something curious had happened. We kept getting more views. After that, we reached our peak with the first light article and then started losing views. Now we were getting less than half of the hits at our peak.
今のままじゃアピールが足りないっす。何かでかいことをやらないと。
It was just as Toyota and Kajima said, we hadn't done anything big with the Six Stars Club recently. Just holding some stargazing events every now and then wasn't too appealing to outsiders. I guess the group was starting to get a little dull. Reading the room, Hanukkah started to speak.
やはりそろそろ動かしたいですね。例の計画を。
Project Starlight? I cautiously said the name.
天文に注目が集まってる今がチャンスだよ。
Everyone nodded at Corona's comment. There had been a bit of a boom for astronomy this year, all because a certain astronomical event was predicted to happen. Not the usual stuff like passing comets, something more well-founded. The Six Stars Club would be able to ride this boom, and we would show everyone just how fun astronomy really was.
もう1ヶ月ほどしか時間がありません。ここは動くべきかと。
Hi. Saya looked at me with worry as I looked troubled. I wanted to go ahead with this plan, however, there was a reason why I was hesitant. The ever-so-vital project leader was currently missing.
もうやっちゃおうよ。
そうっす。リーダーが帰ってくるのを待ってたら間に合わなくなるっす。
やるならなるべく派手めでお願いします。その方が来年の部員集めが楽になるので。
Nisha High didn't have a single new member this year, so their numbers had dropped by 3. Let's start with whoever is actually here.
そういえば、ここ数日ひかりさんと連絡が取れないのですが、何かご存知ではないですか？
Saya and I looked at each other. We don't know either.
メッセージを送ってもずっと未読のままで何かあったんでしょうか。
About that, we have a favor to ask. Could you get in touch with Noriko? We think that Noriko knows how to contact her family. Noriko had been in the same school as Hikari, so it shouldn't be too hard to ask teachers or classmates how to contact Hikari's family.
わかりました。聞いてみます。
Project Starlight was a plan to promote astronomy across the entire city. The star who came up with the plan was currently not with us. Hikari Hukuboshi of Electra. We had been waiting for her to return before acting on our plans, but as Hanuka said, we hadn't heard from Hikari in a few days.
おお、やったね、かっこいいでしょ。
The meeting had been going on for a while, so Hinami and Anishai High Girl had become bored and were fooling around on their phones.
そこの1年生、何をしているんですか？会議中ですよ。怒られた。すいません。何見てたの？あのね、草壁さん、コメットガールって知らない？コメットガール？知らない。コンソメ味っぽいね。お菓子？コメット彗星？昨日くらいからネットで話題になってるんです。先輩たちも見てみてくださいよ。
Oh yeah, Takeichi had been talking about that right before we left. Well, just like passing comets, something will go viral, but the net will quickly move on to something else.
どれ？見せて。コロナさん。
Hanuka's angry warning stopped Corona in her tracks. Let's save that for after the meeting, Hinami.
ごめんなさい。すいません。
We talked about the latest astronomical news, complained about our budgets and how nobody recognized us. It became a pretty boring meeting. Everybody's struggling.
そうだね。
西高は今年も新入部員入ったし、ひとまず安泰って感じだよな。
神野先輩から来年は絶対2人以上新入部員を獲得しろって言命されてるから辛いよ。
Toyota was rubbing his chest.
うちもコロナさんが入ってくれましたが、来年のことを思うと不安になります。
Even the members who only show up for the astronomical shows had retired. Right now, there was only Hanuka and Corona in Maiku's club. Well, after Hinami joined my club, I'm finally starting to understand what Urahaimi was telling me about. I needed to find a way to help the club survive for Hinami. I almost painfully understood the president's and the one before me predicament when he allowed me to join, even though I wouldn't look at the stars. I was finally starting to care about the club, similar to Nishai High and Morimisawa, who actually did regular club activities. But still, if there were no new members in the club, would disband, and the few clubs with members left would be limited to what they could do. The Six Stars Club had been a lifesaver. It went beyond one school and gathered people one place where we could do some real astronomy. Because of that, we could be more confident when inviting new members. I would like to start Project Starlight. Oh.
早く始めたいね。プロジェクトスターライト。
Me too.
何やってんのさ、ピカリンは。
Hanuka looked at the clock on the wall.
だいぶ時間を使ってしまいましたね。そろそろ出ましょうか。
The sun's going to set if we don't get a move on. Everybody started leaving the astronomy room according to each club president's orders. Outside, the clear autumn sky reached far and wide. The forecast said it would be a moonless night, with no chance of rain until morning. And tomorrow was Saturday, so we didn't have to go to school. We couldn't pass up on such a perfect opportunity for stargazing. Today's Six Stars Club meeting was the first observation meetup we'd had in a while.
ちょっと休ませてください。
That was Toyota from Nishai High after reaching the top of the slope.
情けねえぞ豊田。女子を見習え。
休んでる暇はありませんよ。日が沈む前に準備してしまわないと。
Winter was coming and the days were getting shorter. The Pleiades one had to be ready for observation before it got dark. Come on, let's go. We're nearly there. I was short of breath too, but I took the lead and started walking.
行くぞ豊田。ほら、まだ貸してやっから。
わかったから引っ張らないでくれよ。
We climbed a bit further and entered the forest. The Pleiades one was being kept in the old train car that served as our storeroom. It was only light compared to the retail telescopes, and the mirror box containing the primary mirror was especially heavy. Since we couldn't move it by car, I wanted to keep it as close to the observation area as possible. Saya! After we entered the forest, Saya held on tight to my arm as she walked, but her eyes were glued on the phone the whole time. You'll fall over if you keep looking at that. Told you so. I caught her just as she was about to fall.
ごめんなさい。
What are you looking at so intently?
コネクトコール。しーちゃんがアドレス送ってきたから見てたんだけど。
She was one of Saya's friends at school. That story is really making the rounds, huh? Is it that interesting? Intrigued, I sneak a look at Saya's phone.
っていうか、これって。
Skimming the article from an angle, I learned that Comic Girl was a student, apparently. This mysterious girl had swiftly appeared to save a trembling kitten trapped on the road, and then swiftly vanished. Someone had uploaded a partial video of the event, and that's how the story had spread. No one knows who she is, but the name Comic Girl had stuck, thanks to the impact of her kitten rescue, as well as her twin ponytails. I played the video embedded in the article. There was a kitten trembling in the middle of a 4-lane road, cars zooming past it on both sides. It wasn't clear how it had gotten there. The person filming the video had come across the kitten and sounded very agitated. Even though it was afraid of the cars, the kitten looked like it was about to make a dash for it at any minute. Just watching it made me flustered too. Damn it, someone go save it already. Just then, something suddenly entered the frame. Someone, rather. A girl, but she ran with amazing speed. Weaving through the tiny gaps between the cars, she picked up the trembling kitty while running. All right! I realized my fists were clenched. With her twin ponytails trailing behind her, the girl ran across the road and disappeared. It was a dramatic video, from the initial anxiety to the girl's sudden appearance, and the word swift definitely captured that impact. No wonder it was spreading online. However, I was watching this video for the first time, but somehow I got a sense of deja vu. That girl. The way she ran toward her target, the familiar Amahai uniform. And those long twin ponytails. It was a low-quality video, but despite the blurred images, I knew who she was. That's Hickory, right? What the heck was going on?
やっぱり光だよね。
Saya spoke in a whisper as if she didn't believe it. But the girl in the video was Hickory, no doubt about it. Which meant the identity of the online sensation dubbed Comic Girl was in fact Hickory. It's been a while since we saw her.
何をしているんですか？早く行きますよ。
I suddenly realized that we'd fallen far behind the rest of the group. Okay, got it! We raced to catch up with everyone else.
光のやることだから。
Yeah, that's Hickory for you. It was amazing how that one comment of Saya's made sense of the whole crazy situation. Some such things were possible when it came to Hickory. According to everyone, people who had only started talking about Comic Girl yesterday. Also, that article was written yesterday, and it said the video had been taken this morning. Hold on, something wasn't right. That can't possibly be her over there.
誰かいますよ
Toyota reached the platform first, and he sounded like he'd seen a ghost or something. Everyone turned to follow his gaze, and there was someone there. A girl in a uniform was sitting on the roof of the train car. It had been dark out. You probably could have mistaken her for a ghost. Hinami looked at the girl and shouted out loud.
コメントがある。本当だ。コメントがあるだ。
And both of them had been online during the meeting, but you could hear the amazement in their voices. Yep, everything was the same as the video. She wore an Amahai uniform and her long twin ponytails danced in the wind.
そうなの？でもあれって。
She must have heard us talking because Comic Girl turned around to see us.
おーい。待ちくたびれちゃったじゃん。
What are you doing here? Hickory. Looking at our surprised faces, Hickory smiled smugly and stood up. For her next comment, she faced us fully. As usual, no one knew what the bingo was for, but that smug look and the V sign were unmistakably Hickory's. Without a word, Hickory got off the train roof and landed lightly on the platform. At the same time,
その呼び方をするんじゃない。やっぱりピカリンだ。
noticing Saya's gaze, Hickory smiled broadly.
さやー！会いたかったよー！さやー！私もだよ、光！
Surviving Hickory's glomp somehow, Saya looked so happy she almost cried.
よーしよしよしよし、いい子いい子。私コタちゃんじゃないんだよ。
Hickory!
あ、来た。
Hickory disentangled herself from Saya and turned to face me. Seeing each other after a year brought up all kinds of thoughts, but our feelings couldn't catch up. Welcome back.
申し訳ないですが、そういうのは後にしてください。
Hanukkah interrupted me before I could finish. Hey, hold on.
もう日が暮れます。
Hanukkah pointed her index finger at the sky.
さあ皆さん、プレアデス1号を運び出すのを手伝ってください。
As Hanukkah gave her instructions, we remembered our assigned tasks and started work.
待って待って、吉岡ちゃん。何ですか？5分。あ、いや、3分でいいから時間ちょうだい。だって1年ぶりの再会なんだよ。私そのために寒い中ここでずっと待ってたんだよ。天体の運行は人の都合になど構ってくれません。光さ、急ぎましょう。
はーい。
よし、やるか。
コメントがある。ひどいよ、あんまりだよ。吉岡ちゃんって前からそういうとこあったよね。光さんも元気が有り余っているようなので、どうぞ手伝ってください。よしよし、続きは準備ができてからやろうね。
And so the emotional reunion was postponed until we got ready for the observation. Welcome back, Hickory.
ただいま、アキト。無言で見つめ合う幼なじみの二人。およそ1年ぶりの再会。その胸に巨来する思いとは。 飛び込んで。できるかー。そんな気分もうすっかり慣れちゃったわよ。
Hickory's objection was reasonable. After all, we had just brought the Pallades 1 here, assembled it, and adjusted the optical axis. There wasn't much time, so we had all worked silently. We managed to get everything ready before sunset, but the shock and nostalgia of seeing Hickory again had vanished completely.
では普通に紹介しましょうか。と言っても、もう皆さんご存知だとは思いますが。コメントがある。ねえ、さっきからそれ何？ヒカリ知らないの？ネットで話題になってるんだけど。コンソメ味のポテチ？新製品かな？早乙女に売ってる？
She really doesn't know about it. Seeing that everyone was looking at her in confusion, Hickory cocked her head to one side.
ではなく、この方がムツラボシの最後の一世。
Hanukkah gestured for Hickory to step forward.
甘党天文部、ここに復活！エレクトラのほうき星ひかりです。みんなよろしくね。
Those who had worked with Hickory since last year clapped and welcomed her back. The younger students didn't know her personally or had only heard of her through the Six Stars Club group chats.
ほうき星先輩ってこんな人だったんだ。コメントがある先輩。
Hickory knew about the first years too and went about putting their names from group chat to faces.
あなたが山田ひなみさんね。アキトんとこの後輩の。こんばんは、ほうき星先輩。
Worried by Hikari's proximity and almost oppressed by her bosom, Hinami took a half step back.
よろしくね。ほうき星先輩、素敵な人だね。
Hickory heard what the first years were saying about her, and she was overjoyed. Anyway, why didn't you reply to our messages?
そうだよ。メッセージ未読のままだし、心配してたんだよ。ああ、ごめん。スマホを踏んづけて割っちゃって。連絡先から何から全部スマホの中でしょ。こっちから連絡取りようがなくてさ。直接会えばいいかと思って早乙女行ったら、先生が店番してて、今日ムツラボシの観測会だって言うから。
So that's why she'd been waiting up here.
いつの間に日本に帰ってきたの？おととい。昨日から学校行ってるの。
She showed off her Amahai uniform rather proudly. Even though that thick fabric her chest was visible, it seemed like she had gotten bigger too. Saya was also looking at them jealously, or perhaps that was just my imagination.
やっぱ日本はいいね。街は綺麗だし、お米美味しいし、そこらにコンビニあるし、テレビが日本語だし、お母さんの料理美味しいし。
Didn't you say it'd be gone a bit longer though?
うん。でもほら、早く始めたいじゃん。例の計画。
When Hickory said that, everyone looked at one another expectantly.
ことは、いよいよ始めちゃうんだ。
Hanukkah looked at Saya and me as if seeking confirmation, and then at Hickory.
何？なんかまずいことでもあったの？
Not exactly. We couldn't contact you, so we couldn't start the project, that's all.
つまり、もう準備は OK と。光の号令待ちだよ。
Hickory smiled brightly.
じゃあ、行っちゃおうか。
With wide grins on our faces, we all nodded.
お願いしますね。プロジェクトリーダー。頼りにしてるよ、光。コロナもピカリンについてくよ。よーし、プロジェクトスターライトの開始をここに宣言しちゃうよ。
With everyone relying on her, Hickory was in high spirits. But we knew we could rely on her because that's who Hickory was. There was a special gravity about her.
みんな、やるよ。明るい夜のために。明るい夜のために。
Hickory screamed, holding Saya's phone in one hand. On screen, she saw herself pick up the kitten and run off.
これ光だよね。おお、そうだと思う。本当に知らなかったの？
Hickory shook her head.
だってスマホ壊れちゃってたし。
Saya and I were pretty surprised when we watched the video, but Hickory's mind was blown.
カリン超有名人じゃん。
Hickory didn't even notice that Corona called her a Pickering and just kept staring at Saya's phone. She was really shocked.
カリ？まあいっか。
Well, you're taking it lightly.
だって悪いことして有名になったわけじゃなし、コメントもよくやったってみんな褒めてくれてるよ。それにさ、どうせみんなすぐに飽きちゃうでしょ。
That's true.
でもびっくりだね。まさか動画に撮られてたなんて。
According to Hickory, the day after she had come back to Japan, she found the kitten on the way to Amahai and ran right in to save it. Then she found its mother and siblings, so she returned the kitten and went off to school.
コメントがあるか。なんかアイドルみたいで可愛いね。
Hickory gave a weird smile. Well, if she doesn't mind, so be it.
さて、そろそろ遅いですし、お開きにしましょうか。
Hanukkah was right. Today's observation wasn't an overnight one. We had to leave while the trains were still running.
じゃあ撤収準備始めるっす。トヨタ、ソラミ。
な。
Got it! The boys started dismantling the Pleiades one. Today's observations went well, yeah?
そうだね。やっとブログの読者にプレアデス1号で見る天体の姿を見せてあげられる。
Tonight's theme was Mars, since it was the right time to observe it. In addition, we took some direct focus photographs with the Pleiades one. Direct focus photography is where you replace the lens of the SLR camera with a telescope. We removed the lens of an SLR camera, attached it to the Pleiades one's eyepiece, and tried taking some photos. The results were great. The photos captured the feel of the night sky. Now we could show the readers of our blog the sky as we'd seen it through our homemade telescope, the Pleiades one.
それじゃあ運ぶぞ。
Okay. And so our short but fruitful observation meetup had come to an end.
先輩、お疲れ様です。お疲れ様です。皆さん、気をつけて帰ってくださいね。
あざした。
それじゃあまた。
When we got to the station, we all went to our separate ways home. The only ones left were Saya and I, who lived nearby, and Hickory, whose house was the furthest of all. When's your train?
あと5分くらいで来るみたい。
That wasn't enough to grab a cup of coffee, so we waited by the gates.
でも本当にびっくりした。いきなり帰ってくるんだもん。ドッキリ大成功。
It's hard to relax when you're around, that's for sure. How about doing some things normally for a change?
そんなのつまんないじゃん。やっぱ楽しくないとね。
For that last part, Hickory seemed to be talking to herself.
あ、そうだ。お土産あるから今度持ってくるね。お話も聞きたいな。向こうでの暮らしとか。聞かせちゃう。今度アキトの部屋でパジャマパーティーやろうよ。
You dork.
なんでよ。
We're not kids anymore.
おほ。何がどう違うんですかな。具体的にお願いします。
Hickory snickered. I felt my face turn red as I looked away.
はあ、赤くなってる。ほら見て見てさや。本当だね。
Now Saya was making fun of me too.
アキトのむっつりも相変わらずか。
Look at Sai. Straining at his leash, Kotaro was wagging his tail and barking.
コタちゃん。
Saya just couldn't help going over to pet Kotaro.
相変わらず小太郎はさやにデレデレだね。
Even though I'm the one who walks him every day.
まあでもしゃあないよ。さやは可愛いから。
Hickory glanced over at me as she said this. I knew more or less what she was trying to say. Hey, don't get any funny ideas. You're no good at that kind of thing anyway.
そんなことないもん。タケとジンノさん、うまくいってるんでしょ？
I guess Takeichi had really set the precedent there. That's due to Taki's hard work, not yours, so don't be so smug.
じゃあ何？自分だけで大丈夫って？それか。あ、実はもう付き合ってる？
With who?
そりゃあ。コタちゃん、よしよし。コタちゃんふさふさだね。もふもふで気持ちいい。
We're not together. My response bored Hickory, it seemed, but in an instant she was smiling again.
ガキの頃とは違うんだぜってとこ見せてやってよね。
Hickory poked me in the side with her elbow. Ow, that hurts!
さやは私の大事な友達なんだから。泣かせたら許さないんだからね。
I don't intend to.
よし。じゃあ微力ながらこの私も力になってあげよう。
I told you don't do anything. It'll just complicate matters.
そう遠慮するなよ、相棒。
We were joking, just messing around. Only a few hours had passed since the reunion, but things were already back to the way they were before. Saya had gotten her fill of playing with Kotaro and returned without us noticing. Hickory suddenly hugged Saya and started caressing her.
私は小太郎よりあんたを撫でたいよ。よしよしよしよし。くすぐったいよ、光。いっぱい一緒に遊ぼうね、さや。ああ、そうだ。今度デートしよう。いいよ。またハーバータウン行こう。新しいお店もできたんだよ。
Looking at the girls playing around, I got a little jealous. If I did the same thing to them, I'd get slapped. You two get along really well, huh?
当たり前じゃん。だってさやは私の親友だもん。ねえ、さや。
Just then, we heard the sound of the train's wheels.
来たよ。もっとさやをスリスリしてたいけど、しょうがない。帰るか。
Hickory walked away from Saya toward the gates. And just before entering the station, she looked back.
明日から頑張ろうね。プロジェクトスターライト。
Hi! Hickory struck a pose, then ran through the grates and onto our train at the platform. Things are going to get a lot more interesting around here starting tomorrow.
そうだね。
For no reason at all, we stood there and watched the train disappear into the night.
ねえ、あきとくん。
Nani?
やっぱりまた今度でいいや。
Oh, come on, don't do that.
じゃあね。また明日。
Hey, I'll walk you home, Saya. With that, she took off. Hey, be careful not to fall! What's up with her? Project Starlight. Before talking about Project Starlight, let me explain the phenomenon that has been predicted for this year. It was predicted that it was going to be a particularly good year for the Geminid meteor shower. To begin with, the Geminid meteor shower was already one of the 3 most active meteor showers. But this year, the forecast was for nearly double the usual number of meteors. People on TV were calling it a possible reprise of the 2001 Leonids and things like that. A meteor shower is where a large group of meteors fall continuously, almost like rain. At the time of the 2001 Leonids, here's what an amateur stargazer who actually saw it had to say. The meteors just kept falling and falling. I was almost sick of it by the time it ended. Can you believe that? What a privilege it must have been. Those who remembered the Leonids, and the young stargazers who missed them, had high hopes for this year's Geminid shower.
大流星群を最高の状態で迎えるために私たちに何かできることはないのかな。
From Hickory's comment, the idea for Project Starlight had been born. Surely there was something the Six Stars Club had a gathering of students from the 6 schools of Hoshinonaka City could do. It only had to be one night, the night of the meteor shower. We wanted as many people to see as many meteors as possible.
明るい夜のために
We were planning to create the ideal backdrop for the meteor shower, a night sky bright with the twinkling of stars.
というわけなんです。
Silence. Hickory looked very pleased as she finished explaining her plan. However,
何言ってるかよくわかんなかった。
そうですね。要するに俺ら何をすればいいっすか？
何って盛り上げるの天文を。もう少し具体的にお願いします。
Hickory shrank at Hanako's impassive remark. Today, the Six Stars Club was meeting in the Astronomy Club room at Maiku Academy. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss Project Starlight. Hickory had been saying, "Let's do it," since forever, but the details were all in her head, and listening to her now didn't make things any clearer. Thus summoned, Saya had no choice but to go to Hickory's side.
まずこことここを説明しないと。おお、そうだった。
Thanks to Saya's advice, Hickory got the groove back.
この計画の趣旨は天文の PR です。流星群ブームに乗っかって天文の楽しさをより多くの人に知ってもらうことを第一の目的とします。
Project Starlight sounded really grand and all, but behind the name it was just a publicity stunt. The idea was to promote interest in astronomy now, while the world was eagerly looking at the size.
そのために6つの学校が集まっているっていう6つら星の会の特性を生かそうってわけ。
The 6 schools in the club were spread out all over Hoshinonaka City. If we each focused on our neighborhoods, we could get word out to most of the city. But we already knew all that.
PR するだけですか？
Hickory shook her index finger.
それで終わっちゃったら苦労の割に実入りが少ない。そう、それになっちゃうでしょ。
なんか俺らにも旨味があるんすか？
みんな部員がなかなか集まらなくて苦労してるよね。それはどうしてかわかる人？
Corona raised her hand.
天文部がマイナーだから？
Her very direct answer made everyone glum, especially the older stargazers. Hickory nodded and went on.
一般生徒たちは自分の学校に天文部があることさえ知らなかったりするわね。
Several people in the room clutched at their chest and drew pained breaths. Everyone knew what Hickory was talking about, I'm sure. In our school, thanks to a rumor about a guy living in the clubroom, we had some degree of recognition. Plus, Saya's visits had been deemed in character for the astronomy club, so we were pretty well known. Though I wouldn't call us reputable.
じゃあ、双子座大流星群の PR をしながら天文部のこともアピールするの？その必要はありませんね。
Hanukkah spoke before Hickory responded.
天文や流星群についての PR 活動がそのまま天文部の PR になりますから。そうですよね、ひかりさん。そう、それ私がズバッとかっこよく言いたかったのに先に言われちゃったけど、そういうこと。
If we promoted astronomy, people would naturally get to know about our clubs and activities too. And these were people that were interested in meteor shower craze too.
天文部がいまいちマイナーな理由って外から見て活動内容がよくわからないからだと思うの。
The longtime fans of stargazing didn't seem to get this, but then
そうかも。
Corona nodded, a serious look on her face.
だって星って夜に見るものでしょ。じゃあ昼間の部活動で何やってんだろうって思ってた。
People were probably also wondering about the basic stuff like what was so interesting about looking at the stars.
どんな部活かイメージできないというのも天文部がメジャーになれない理由というわけですか。
野球部とかサッカー部みたいなグラウンドで練習してる運動部はその点有利っすよね。何してるか見たらわかっから。
Compared to the clear goals of the sports clubs, perhaps it was natural for cultural clubs to have trouble finding members. If our aims and activities were better known, there'd surely be more people knocking at our doors. Just like last year's observation meetup.
でもそれはプロジェクトのおまけみたいなものだわ。この計画の本当の目的は他にある。
本当の目的？
Hickory nodded solemnly.
明るい夜のために。
Hickory had come up with that slogan. It seemed like a hit. Everyone was repeating it.
星の光は街の明かりにかき消され、年々夜空は暗くなっていってる。来たるべき大流星群の夜、一つでも多くの流星を見てもらうためには、星々の輝く明るい夜を取り戻す必要があるわ。それこそがプロジェクトスターライトの真の目的。どうやって明るい夜を取り戻すんですか？
Hickory grinned as if she'd been waiting all along for Hanaka's question.
街中の人に部屋の明かりを消してもらいます。
街中の人に
明かりを消してもらう？
ずっとというわけじゃないわ。流星群の降る夜だけでいい。たった一日だけかつてのような明るい夜を取り戻すの。この星の中の夜空に。
In short, Hickory was going to ask the residents of Hoshinonaka to put out the lights.
できるの？そんなこと。
In a whisper, Corona said what was on everyone's mind.
わかんない。でもそれこそやってみなくちゃわかんないでしょ。
わかんないって。
おいおい。
I think it's worth a shot. I'd been silent throughout Hickory's presentation. Now everyone's eyes were on me. Even if no one turned off their lights and the sky stayed dark, it would be better knowing that we had tried rather than just doing nothing. Saya spoke too, a little tentatively.
私もまずは知ってもらうことが大事だと思います。
Getting everyone on board wouldn't be easy. This wasn't just about the fun of astronomy. This was one step further. We were making a stand. We were likely to fail, or be met with some kind of negative response. Those thoughts scared us.
まいた種が芽吹くとは限らない。
Hanukkah spoke softly.
けれど、すべての種が芽吹かないとも限らない。種をまかなければ、花が咲くこともない。滅びの運命をただ座して受け入れるのか？ヒナ！天文が滅びつつある不毛の荒野に、バラ星雲のような美しい花を咲かせてみせましょう。私たちの手で。吉岡ちゃん？部長がおかしくなった。
Hanukkah, who had stood up for that rousing soliloquy, returned to her senses and blushed.
そう言ったのではないでしょうか。もし白鳥前会長がここにいたなら。
For a moment, it felt like her joke had fallen flat, but we all got Hanukkah's message. And for those of us who knew Horahime from last year, I'm sure they could imagine her giving that speech.
天文の PR は六つ星の会の使命。たとえ計画通りに生かすともやる意義はあるはず。私は光さんの意見に賛成です。吉岡ちゃん。
そうっすね。失敗したって失うもんがあるわけじゃねえし。
派手にやってもらえると助かります。
And so, with a little help from an Orihime-inspired performance, Project Starlight was officially green-lighted. Saya was sitting in a cafe space at the store, her notebook in front of her to study. She gave a little wave to Kotaro through the window. You want some more coffee? I glanced over at her notebook as I refilled her cup. I was curious about what she was studying. Whoa, that looks tough. That was Saisen Girls Academy for you. Saisen was known to be a highly academic school.
そうかな。
相変わらず真面目だね、さやは。
Miss Miharu had come over to glance at Saya's notebook as well.
こんなとこでまで勉強しなくてもいいじゃないの。もっと気楽に生きようよ。
She sounded like one of those little cartoon devils whispering in your ears. She plopped down next to Saya and opened a magazine. It definitely wasn't something our old teacher would be saying to us. Please don't read the magazines off the rack like that. We need to sell those.
立ち読み OK なんじゃないのこの店。
As long as they do it at the rack, sure. You can't sit down with it. Saya didn't seem bothered by the disturbance. She just kept going on with her homework.
頑張って勉強して、みはる先生みたいな、いい先生になるんだもん。
Saya's smile was so carefree that it made me think of how an angel might look. Miss Miharu reached over and opened her boxed lunch, grimacing like a child does when they discover the only thing in their lunch is the stuff they hate. Apparently, something had bothered her. She stood up and walked over to her plate to place her magazine back on the rack.
私、何か悪いこと言ったかな。
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Saya hadn't said it to be rude. She was really studying to become like Miss Miharu had been back when she was our teacher. Saya hadn't done anything wrong.
ねえ、さや、勉強見てあげよっか。わからないところがあったら、先生に言ってごらんなさい。
It looked like she was trying to restore a little of her reputation.
じゃあ、ここなんですけど。先生？
なんだったっけ、これ。
Miss Miharu's eyes became distant as she stared at the problem, her mind trying to dredge up old memories. However, it looked like those lessons were buried at the bottom of a deep chasm that could only be fished back up using something like hypnotism.
ちょっと待ってね、今ググるから。
Miss Miharu, you shouldn't do that.
違うの、どうすれだから。多分すぐ思い出すから。
The desperate expression on my old teacher's face as she started digging around on the web with her phone for an answer was not what I wanted to see. Kotoru started barking outside the shop. He never settles down when you're here, Saya.
コトちゃん。
She started waving enthusiastically at the dog, through the glass again. Saya loved that dog. To her, this was her favorite spot to study. It's still a bit early, but maybe I should take him for his walk. That way I wouldn't have to watch Miss Miharu any longer. It was like she was in the middle of a furious battle with her phone. What about you, Saya? Do you want to come with?
行く。紐持っていい？
Sure, I guess. Saya didn't seem to notice my nervousness at inviting her along. She just started putting things back into her bag.
あったグーグル知恵袋に同じ質問出てた。ほらせや。
ありがとうございます。じゃあ、私も家帰って検索してみますね。
そうしなさい。
Miss Miharu was wearing a look of accomplishment. She hadn't really done anything, though. Saya seemed to be in a great mood as we walked Kotoru down the street. She looked like she might start humming any moment.
やっとプロジェクト動き出せるね。
Hi. We'd officially decided to start Project Starlight during our meeting that afternoon. We were going to get right down to business and start the next day.
やっぱり光がいなきゃだね。光がいるとどんどん前へ進んでいける気がする。
That's because forward is the only direction she's ever looking. If she weren't around to spout off her ridiculous ideas, we'd never end up doing a project like this.
そうだね。私なんか思いつきもしないよ。
Saya was smiling as she said this.
やっぱり三人一緒がいいね。
We were walking along a dimly lit street that ran alongside the train tracks. In the weak light, Saya's already light hair seemed to grow silver. Glancing over at her walking next to me, she looked like a beautiful doll. Crap, now I'm nervous.
どうかした？アキトくん。
Nope, just talking to myself about how excited I am that Project Starlight is finally underway.
私もだよ。しちゃうよね、武者震い。
Saya shut her eyes tight and started shaking all over. How did she get to be this cute? I couldn't take it any longer. I couldn't keep living with all these feelings bottled up like they were. Saya,
何？
is it all right if I give you my answer now?
あの時の返事？
Saya cocked her head to the side, clearly not understanding what I was talking about. My response to your feelings. I stopped as I got the words out. Saya was thrown off guard at the sudden change in subject. She stopped in her tracks and looked up at me. When I looked down at her in different colored eyes, I knew for certain that my feelings for her were real. I would like to be your boyfriend. Saya's eyes grew wide, making the color difference all the more noticeable. That's my answer. Saya's face turned red as she looked down and stared at her feet. Kotaro looked up at her, confused at her unusual behavior. Saya became very quiet. I didn't know what to say, so I was hesitant to speak as well. I started wondering if I'd been too abrupt. Saya? Does that mean it's okay? Saya began to fidget as she averted her eyes and nodded slightly. I guess that meant we were a couple. Right? It felt like it should have been some big decision, but I guess there it was. Maybe that's what it was supposed to be like. Should we head back? It's getting late. Kotaro seemed in fine spirits as Saya, still quietly blushing, led him back down the dimly lit road. I could feel the weather changing as winter approached. It was early morning. I reached over to turn the alarm on my phone off. I was still drowsy as I got up to put my futon away. Oh, so sleepy. Almost a year had passed since I'd started living in the spare room at Sayotomi's. I'd been a little nervous at first, but now I was so used to living here that my days living at the school seemed like a distant memory. It's great that I'm comfortable here, but maybe I'm getting too comfortable. Mornings are harder. The fact that it was almost winter made things even worse. It was getting harder and harder to tear myself out of the warm bed. The only reason I was allowed to stay here, though, was because I was helping out. To keep my room, I had to overcome the huge urge to stay in bed. Oh, it's freezing. It was only November, but the early morning was cold. I started opening the store, little clouds forming with every breath.
Ohayo, Sorami-kun.
Ohayo gozaimasu. It looked like the store manager was about to take Kotaro for his morning walk.
空見くんのおかげで朝がゆっくりできて助かるわ。
I can take him for his morning walks too if you'd like.
いいよ、そこまでしてもらっちゃったらこの子の飼い主が誰かわかんなくなっちゃうわ。
I suppose you're right. She laughed and fixed me with a calculating stare. Is something wrong?
本当にしっかりしたいい子だと思ってね。それに比べてうちの娘は。
She let out a sigh.
もういい年だけど器量はいい方だと思うのよ。私に似て。
I couldn't bring myself to agree with her, so I just kept my mouth closed. I didn't think they looked alike at all. I wondered if the store manager had looked like her daughter when she was younger.
どこかでしっかり者の旦那さんでも見つけてくれたら私も安心なんだけどね。
She sighed again and glanced over briefly as if trying to read my expression. I hope so too. I'd offer myself as a candidate and if I didn't already have a girlfriend. I smiled jokingly as I said this, but I made sure to nonchalantly emphasize the part about having a girlfriend.
あら、空見くんって付き合ってる子いるの？
Oh, yeah. As of yesterday. As I replied, my inner voice was shouting with joy at having my first ever girlfriend.
そうかい。そうだよね。空見くんならね。
I hope Miss Miharu finds somebody nice as soon as well. Well, enjoy your walk. I'm going to go finish opening up the store. With that, I started getting the store ready for business.
今日も一日よろしく頼むよ、空見くん。
The store manager and Kotaro disappeared on their walk. Arigato gozaimasu. The shop was close to the station, so it was fairly busy in the mornings. I was busy helping the regular customers when... I could hear Kotaro's barking and Saya's shouting coming from outside. I knew exactly what was about to happen. Saya burst into the store, covered in fur and looking like she might cry a little. What did you get yourself into? It looked like Kotaro had gotten a little overexcited again. Come on. I grabbed the lint roller I had set aside specifically for Saya whenever this happened. Arms up! Lift up your hair too. I wanted to make sure the lint roller didn't snag on any of her hair, but I got a glimpse of the back of Saya's neck as she lifted her hair up. My heart skipped a beat when I saw part of her skin that wasn't normally exposed. Saya caught me looking and turned slightly to face me. I pretended not to notice though, and continued removing all of Kotaro's hair with the roller. You always seem so together, but you sure have a weakness when it comes to temptation. She has no problem resisting the urge to eat sweets or go play when she needs to study, but she can't seem to resist petting Kotaro. Are you hurt? Saya was still falling over. She wasn't very coordinated, but it seemed like all her falling down had taught her was how to do it gracefully. She almost never hurt herself anymore. There's some on your butt, too. Are you sure? Saya's face turned red as I used the lint roller to remove the fur on her butt. I don't see anything wrong with me doing it. Well, we are dating after all. I scratched my nose, blushing a little myself. Saya looked away shyly, but then she continued talking. Apparently dating and being allowed to use the lint roller on her butt didn't go hand in hand. I made a mental note.
あら、いらっしゃい、さやちゃん。また小太郎と遊んでくれたのね。
おはようございます。
空見くん、もういいわよ。
Hi. I took off my apron and handed it to the store manager. My morning shift was over. Saya and I picked some food out from our lunches, paid, and headed outside. See you after school.
行ってきます。
はいよ、行ってらっしゃい。しっかり勉強してくるんだよ。
今日はアキト君のとこだよね。
Yep. We had a Six Stars Club meeting that afternoon. Now that Project Starlight was officially underway, we'd probably try and meet as often as we could to work on it. Text me when we get there.
わかった。
Saya's bus pulled into the station. She jogged over so that she wouldn't miss it.
じゃあね、アキト君。
See you later after school.
コタちゃん、バイバイ。
Saya stepped onto the bus and greeted her friends before waving at me through the window like she always did. Her friends started poking at her in the side. I couldn't hear them, but Saya's red face and the other girl's surprised look says it all. They'd probably been teasing her about her boyfriend like always, and had been shocked at her new response. The bus slowly pulled out of the roundabout. her friends clearly pressing her for more details. I guess I should get going too then. I unliked my bike and headed off toward my school. The sky seemed somewhat bluer than that day.
サイトの方向性はそれでいいんじゃないでしょうか。
Most of us, the two from Maiku, me, and Hinami, Saya from Sensen, and Hikari from Emma High, were gathered in the Hoshino Daiichi astronomy room. Nishai High and Mori Misawa were a bit far, so they were busy with each other's work elsewhere that day.
天体写真なんかの素材は西高から提供してもらうとして、デザインとかはどうしよう。それなら私できると思う。
Saya raised her hand.
うちの部の人たち、そういうの詳しいから、私も少しわかるし。
You're always been good at drawing, too. Saya was always good at paintings and the like in art class. I remember Miss Maharu always complimenting her on her use of colors.
なら、お任せしてもよろしいですか？でも一人じゃできないだろうから、みんなも手伝ってね。お任せください、天の川先輩。コロナもやってみたい。
In the most basic sense, Project Starlight was really just a PR project. So we decided on making a website where people could go to see all the details and information regarding it. After that was set up, the real work spreading the word would start.
私たちはビラ作りだね。
What should we do about printing? Going to a copy shop is going to be expensive.
うちの部にカラープリンターがありますので、使ってください。
That was Maiku Astronomy Club for you. They had everything.
あとは何がいるかな。大きな準備としては、やはり観望会だね。
We had discussed having a stargazing party for non-members as a way of trying to spread the word out even further. It was our plan to get the adults in the area, not just our peers, more interested in astronomy. For Project Starlight, it would be our biggest event yet.
では、そちらは光さんにお任せしてよろしいでしょうか。勝手承知。
Hikari began rolling up her sleeves.
大丈夫かな。張り切ってるピカリン見てると心配になるよ。
Don't worry, Corona. We'll make sure to keep her in line, right, Saya?
だから光は思う存分張り切ってていいよ。なんかそれポカやらかすの前提みたいで複雑なんですが。
Going off past experiences, I fully expected it.
ではそういう分担で進めていきましょう。西高と諸見沢には私から連絡しておきます。よろしくね、吉岡ちゃん。でさ、観望会なんだけど、私にちょっとしたプランが。
Everyone was excited to finally get started on Project Starlight. We spent the entire day bouncing one idea off another off each other.
それでは部長、皆さん、さようなら。バイバイ。お疲れ様でした。
The three of them got on the bus, heading back in the direction of Maiku Academy. Saya moved to follow them. So, where are you going?
私も一度学校に戻らないといけないから、うちの部の人たちの漫画の手伝いがあるの。
I see.
またね、アキトくん、ヒカリ。バイバイ、さや。
Sayonara. The bus pulled away, leaving me and Hikari alone.
返事した？
Yep. Awkwardness caused me to answer a bit too brusquely as I pushed my bike alongside Hikari.
ってことは、今あんたたち付き合ってるってこと？
I guess so. I must have sounded like I was bragging a bit because Hikari just stared at me for a few moments before saying anything.
そりゃおめでとう。
I feel like you're not exactly thrilled.
だって、アキトにさやを取られちゃったんだもん。
She pursed her lips and kicked at a rock.
ああ、いいなあ。私もさやたんとチュッチュしたい。
You're not pouting about being a third wheel, are you?
誰が？私？
Hickory slapped me hard on the back. It hurt a little.
まさか。あんた私をそんな器の小さい女だと思ってんの？
She sounded pretty serious when she asked this, but let out a chuckle afterward.
祝福してるよ。だって二人とも大切な親友だもん。っていうか、ほっとしてるっていうのが正直なところかな。元はといえば、私がさやの手紙をあんな渡し方したせいで、こんなに遠回りさせちゃったんだもん。
I suppose. Though one might also argue that the only reason Saya and I were dating now was thanks to the way Hickory gave me that letter. If I had found out back then, I'm not sure I would have been ready for something like love. I might have turned her down.
そうか。やっとさやの気持ち届いたか。
As she spoke, Hickory looked up at the sky, at the fall sky. It was burning orange as the sun dipped toward the horizon.
よかったじゃん。
Me too.
頑張んなさいよ。応援してるからさ。
Hickory turned to me with a warm smile on her face. After losing my family, I felt extremely lucky to have friends like her beside me.
で、もうチューした？
Why would you ask that?
だってもう一回はやってんだしさ。告白と同時にブチューってしなかったの？
I would never do something like that.
なんだ、つまんないの。
What did she care? I wasn't dating Saya for Hickory's amusement. It did make me think, though. Perhaps my confession hadn't been dramatic enough. Maybe I could have managed to kiss in the confusion of the moment. Anyway, I appreciate the support. I wasn't really sure how her rooting for us would help, but Hickory nodded.
了解。
A few days passed. I was getting pretty busy with my part-time job and Project Starlight underway. I looked forward to the times when I could just sit and talk with Saya. That's how my days were going. However, something's not right. It was after school. Like usual, the Six Stars Club members from the nearby schools, plus Hickory, were gathered at my school. Saya hadn't come today, however. She had to stay at her school to help with her club's members with their comic.
何がおかしいの？
We're supposed to be dating now, but nothing has changed.
はあ。
Like she comes into the store every morning, right?
おはよう、秋田くん。
Morning, Saya.
今朝は冷えるね。
Yep, sure it is.
空ミク、もういいわよ。
Hi. See you after school.
行ってきます。
はいよ、いってらっしゃい。
それじゃあ、またね、秋田くん。
See you after school. It's the same thing every morning. We leave the store together, she gets on the bus, and I ride my bike to school.
いいじゃない。毎朝会うなんて恋人っぽいよ。
Yeah, but we've been doing that every day since long before we were going out.
他には何してるの？
We text back and forth. She comes into the store in the evening, and we chat or take Kudru for a walk.
すごく親密でいい感じだと思うけど。
We did all that before, too.
なるほど。
Hickory seemed to finally grasp the problem. She put her hand on her chin and began to think.
確かに、秋人とさや、付き合ってるっぽい感じしないかも。
Hinami stood up in shock.
部長と天の川先輩ってお付き合いしていたんですか？
She was completely astonished. It wasn't just her, though.
全然気づかなかった。全くそうは見えませんでしたね。
Everyone stopped what they were doing. Looks of surprise painted across their faces. Was it really that shocking? We weren't trying to hide it. Are you all telling me that nobody noticed anything different about us at all? My mood sunk like a rock.
そりゃあまあ、付き合う以前から付き合ってんのかよお前らって感じだったしね。毎日会ってたり、
She lives close by.
メッセージし合ったり、
I've known her for a long time.
腕組んで歩いたり。
She gets tired and looks like she's gonna fall.
通い妻させてたり。
I wasn't making her do that.
ねえねえ、アキに、本当に付き合ってるの？
Yeah, we are. I was pretty sure at least. I was starting to doubt it myself, though.
お似合いです部長。
You don't have to get so excited, enemy. Calm down.
ちょっといいですか？
Hanukkah raised her hand nervously. For some reason, she started blushing. Sure, go ahead.
お付き合いなさってるってことは、どちらかが愛の告白をなさったってことでしょうか？
Yeah, I suppose so.
すごい。そんなこと本当にあるんですね。ちょっと吉岡ちゃん、うぶすぎない？ですが、そんな恥ずかしいこと、私ならするのもされるのも精神的に耐えられそうにありません。
Neither Corona nor her enemy said anything, but the look and the nod they gave each other told me that they agreed.
そりゃ恥ずかしいだろうけどさ、それを乗り越えちゃうくらい好きになっちゃったらできちゃうってことなんだよ。大人だ。そんなこと言ってピカリン経験あるの？ないよ、ただの想像。だろうと思った。痛いピカリンごめん。私が思うに2人は付き合う前から付き合ってたようなものだったわけで、それがもう何年も続いてる。つまり倦怠期の夫婦みたいなものなのよ。
Hickory continued grinding her fist into Corona's arm as she said this. A slump after only a few days together?
ズバリ足りないのはドキドキね。
Excitement?
だってあんたら今さら手を握ったくらいじゃドキドキしないでしょ？
I guess not. I'd lost count of how many times I've held her hand to help her up after she tripped. It had been thrilling at first, but I almost couldn't keep up with how often I helped her now.
つまりもっとドキドキする何かをすればいいってことだね。ドキドキ。一緒にお化け屋敷に入りましょう。ああ、いいかも。さやホラーとか苦手だし。
And where am I going to find a haunted house? We could go to an amusement park, but that would take over an hour on the train. It sounded like a fun date, but I didn't think we'd have the time for something like that until Project Starlight was finished.
吊り橋でも渡る？ほら、あるじゃん、裏山の谷に。
You mean the one that's closed because it's old and falling apart? That would certainly be a thrilling experience, but I didn't feel like risking my life. I'm not sure that's the kind of excitement we need anyway. The thrill that comes from the risk of bodily harm wasn't exactly the same.
ねえ、2人でいてドキドキしたり照れたりすることってないの？
Shy, huh? I thought about it for a minute and then mentioned the only thing that came to mind.
コロコロで犬の毛を取ってあげて。
Hanukkah had turned bright red just from listening to the story and how was covering her ears and looking away. I always do that for her.
それがいつものことなんですか？ごく普通の一般的男女はお付き合いしてなくてもそのくらい日常茶飯事なのですか？吉岡ちゃん落ち着いて。そんなのこの子らだけだから。
When I started getting the hair that was stuck to the back of her skirt, she turned red and said that she'd do it herself.
当たり前じゃん。なんでそこ取ろうとするの？
Corona backed away from me a little. Was it really that strange?
なるほど。そこね。
Huh?
突破口はそこにあるってこと。
You mean Saya's butt? Hickory nodded, looking satisfied with herself. The other three were looking at Hickory like she was crazy. I don't know who to believe.
さやが恥ずかしがるポイントをついてドキドキさせてあげるのよ。そうしたら自然と初々しいカップルみたいになれるはずだわ。
There was still something flawed about her reasoning, but it made kind of sense.
名付けてドキドキ作戦。 サヤを照れさせるのよ、アキト。
Get her to blush? Alright. I should be more excited about having my first girlfriend. Hickory's energy started to rub off on me, motivating me to try harder. So even though we were busy planning Project Starlight, I also decided to dedicate myself to the success of Operation Heartbeat.
あまりおかしなことをすると逆に嫌われてしまうんじゃ。
Hanukkah was a little worried, but her remark never reached me. Thanks for the meal.
はいよ、おそ松さん。
I had gone out to grab dinner during my break. When I got back to the store, Saya was sitting at the counter. Saya?
あ、アキト君。
She looked up from the notebook she had spread out in front of her. Studying for your test again? Isn't that still a ways away?
けどしばらく天文部の方で忙しいし、できる時にやっておこうと思って。ここでならコタちゃんも見てられるし、それにアキト君とも一緒にいられるもんね。
She smiled at me, then got back to her studies. I just watched her study for a bit. We'd only just finished our conversation, but she was already fully absorbed into her studies. She certainly was fast at switching gears. Every so often, the length of her hair would fall down and she'd reach up to tuck it behind her ear. It was a very feminine thing to do. She had a serious look on her face as she focused on her studies, but that made it all the cuter. I'm the one whose heartbeat is getting faster. It was the first time I'd looked at Saya with these feelings. Or rather, I'd say that the subconscious switch I'd used to keep myself from feeling this way had finally been turned off. I noticed a cup of pudding sitting next to her notebook. It was open and partially eaten. It seemed like she had a system where she would take one bite after a certain amount of studying. Even that was cute. It was just like her. I took a seat next to her. Saya noticed me sit down but got right back to her studies. That meant she didn't feel strange at all at having me sit this close to her. It was a strange way to put it, but it was like she had noticed that the air around her had become slightly more appealing. Saya must have gotten to one of her stopping points because she set down her pencil. Before she could do it, I reached out and grabbed that pudding. Here, allow me.
ありがとう。
Saya! Saya opened her mouth just enough for me to fit a spoonful of pudding in.
おいしい。どうしたの、アキト君。
Namdam and I. My answer didn't seem to satisfy her, and she tilted her head questioningly. She wasn't blushing in the least. Does me feeding you like this really feel no different than you eating by yourself?
違い？アキト君に食べさせてもらった方が甘い。
Saya opened her mouth again, waiting for another bite. When did she become this cute? The fact that I couldn't get her to blush was a bit unsatisfying, but knowing that she was this comfortable around me wasn't bad either. I felt like a mother bird feeding one of her chicks as I placed another spoonful of pudding in Saya's mouth.
甘い。
You're so cute, you know that?
何いきなり。
That got her to blush a little. I'd known Saya was cute since we met, but I was now just realizing how cute her behavior was, too. One more bite? Just as Saya went to take a bite, I pulled the spoon away. You fell for it.
ひどいよ、あっくんのバカバカ。
She started play hitting me. Messing around like this was fun. It tickled a bit, too. I was just joking around. Here, no tricks this time.
絶対だよ。
I let her take a bite this time. She looked content.
おいしい。
A blissful smile appeared across her face. She was an angel. I was sitting next to an angel.
アキト君も食べさせてあげるね。はーい。
I nodded my head in silence. The mixture of blissful emotions mixed with the pudding's sweetness was overwhelming. Saya looked delighted as she turned shyly back to her studies. The expression on her face told me that the sweet break had replenished her energy reserves. She was ready for another round of studying. I wanted to stay and watch her study a bit longer, but a customer had come in, so I had to make my way back to the register. Saya continued studying while I worked the register. About after an hour, she closed her notebook and gathered up her textbooks from the table. You going home? I'll walk with you.
でもまだ早いし。
It was still a bit early for Kotoru's walk as well. It's fine, Miss Miharu.
なに
I'm gonna walk Saya home. Can you watch the store for a bit?
しゃあないわね。
Miss Miharu stepped into her slippers and came out from the back. She always did have a soft spot when it came to Saya. I won't be long. Come on, let's go.
それじゃあ先生。
はいよ。送り狼に気をつけるんだよ。
送り狼って何かな。
No idea.
今の若いもんには通じないのか。
We walked side by side down the dark street. Without Kotoru with us, it was quieter than usual. Saya seemed to be in a good mood. You sure study hard.
そう？
I guess you have to at a school like as academic as Sison Girls Academy.
そんなことないよ。私、他にやることもないし。
Even at school, as though Saya's grades were great. She never told me, so I wasn't sure, but I heard her test scores were in the top 30.
アキト君の方がすごいよ。毎日アルバイトして部活も頑張ってて。
I only do it because I have to. There were times that I wanted to skip early shift, but overall, the store manager was nice to me, and the work really wasn't all that bad. Between Saya and Takaichi dropping by to hang out, so, as well as my regular customers, Kotoru and Miss Miharu, I never was bored. Have you ever thought of getting a part-time job?
うちはアルバイト禁止だから。それに、おばあちゃんに怒られると思う。学生の本分は勉強だろうって。
I wouldn't want your grandma to get mad at me. She scares me. Whoa! Saya suddenly stumbled over a small rock and lost her balance. I grabbed her arm to keep her from falling.
ありがとう。
Saya was always falling over, so I was constantly keeping an eye on her for any signs of trouble without even thinking about it. I always was ready to react and lend her a hand. Now I saw this as my chance. You sure do fall a lot.
ごめんなさい。
I don't want you tripping again. How about I hold your hand? For a moment she looked like she'd refuse, but then she nodded her head. Up until now, the only times we'd held hands had been in places like forests or other spots where the footing had been dangerous. Even then, it was usually just Saya holding my arm or grabbing onto my sleeve. I ignored the unnaturalness of it the moment and took her hand in mine. Her hand was small enough that it fit easily within mine. Your hands are so small. It was the only thing my brain could think to say as it screamed out, "We're holding hands!"
アキト君の手が大きいんだよ。男の子ってすごいね。昔は同じくらいだったのに。すごく頼もしいな。
Saya's small hand squeezed mine a bit tighter. I began to redden at her comment. Wait, I was supposed to get her to blush. Rather than blushing, though, Saya looked completely relaxed. She even started swinging our arms back and forth like a kid might. Do I make you feel that comfortable?
何？
Nothing. Operation Heartbeat had failed again. But what could I possibly do to get her heart racing? If that's the case, I decided to throw all my cards on the table the next morning. It was the next day.
コタちゃんやめてハチトくん
Well, at least you're consistent. Saya entered the store covered in Kotaru's fur again this morning. I grabbed the lint roller I kept set aside for Saya again. Okay, raise your arms. As I started cleaning all the hair off her shirt like normal, I was getting excited about my secret plans. It was time. Last night when Saya had been at the store, I got to feed her some pudding, but it wasn't enough to get her to blush. Even holding her hand on the way home hadn't been enough to get the response I wanted. It should have felt like something special, but to Saya and me who had known each other for so long, it felt too natural. I needed to find a way to get her heart racing. I really wanted to. I've been hoping this opportunity would present itself since I got the idea last night. I waited for the right time to make my move. You have some on the back of your skirt.
そこは自分で
Don't worry about it, I will get it for you. As I moved the lint roller along the curve of her butt, her back stiffened and she went suddenly rigid. Hold still. Roll, roll. When I glanced up, Saya's face was bright red and she looked like she didn't know what to do. It was definitely working. She hadn't even missed a beat when I was feeding her pudding, but this time she was finally blushing. Nice. I had to make the best of this opportunity while it lasted, so I spent a little extra time to make sure I got every last hair.
もういいよ綺麗になったよ
I still see some hair. Roll, roll. There, that should do it. I decided that was enough and pulled the lint roller away. This is when things went wrong. Saya noticed that something was wrong and looked down. The tape on the lint roller had gotten stuck to the fabric of her skirt. So when I lifted the roller away, the back of her skirt had come up with it. Saya's stocking-clad butt was now clearly visible. The soft morning light filtered in through the window, went straight through Saya's stockings, and her white underwear shone through in all its glory. Come in, Saya! I didn't mean to do it! I fumbled to get the lint roller off of her skirt, but only succeeded in making it worse. Her skirt ended up even higher than before. That's not what I was trying to do! The tape won't come off your skirt! After another few moments of struggling with the stubborn lint roller, I managed to successfully unstick it. It was already too late, though. Saya picked up her bag and ran out of the store faster than I'd ever seen her move before. Saya, wait! I just stood there with a dumbfounded look on my face, lint roller still in hand. The store manager must have finished her breakfast because she chose that moment to appear through the back door.
あら、小太郎が騒いでたから、さやちゃんが来てるのかと思ったんだけど。
Saya decided to catch an earlier bus than usual.
そう。どうしたの？大丈夫かい？
She must have been worried when she saw the look on my face. My brain wasn't capable of forming a response in that moment, however. I think I screwed up. Yeah, but she's been ignoring all my texts since this morning. They aren't even marked as read. Our Six Stars Club meeting had finished and we were on our way home. Saya hadn't shown up today either, so we hadn't seen each other since the incident that morning.
よう、お前ら。
Takeichi was at the bus stop with a bunch of other members from the basketball team.
おーす、たけ。
You on your way home already?
明日、練習試合だから。今日は早めに上がりだ。
へえ、真面目にやってんだね。
今年は県大会目指してっからな。
Our school's basketball team was one of the better ones in the district.
んなことで落ち込んでたのか。
Takeichi had asked why I looked so down as I was surprised by my answer. After meeting at the bus station, the three of us ended up heading home together. This is serious.
光なんかの口車に乗せられっからだ。
なんかとは何よ。
ま、別に落ち込むほどのことじゃないだろう。お前らのことだし。
うん、私もそう思う。すぐケロッと仲直りできるって。
Nobody was taking this seriously, though. I guess they weren't there, so they didn't know.
しかし、なんだな。やっとって感じだよな。
What finally happened?
お前と天の川だよ。俺、周りに行ってないだけで、実はもうとっくに付き合ってんだと思ってたぜ。外野の俺らからしても、これで一安心って感じだよ。
Takeichi looked like a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Had he really been that worried about us? What about you then? How are things going with Naru?
言ってるよね。主に私のおかげで。
断じてお前のおかげなんて1ミリたりともねえし。はあ、
What's wrong?
喧嘩できるお前らが羨ましいよ。俺なんてまだその域に達してねえからさ。
I see.
明日の練習試合見に来てほしかったな。
He sounded miserable. She's busy studying for entrance exams, isn't she?
くっそ、同い年に生まれたかったぜ。
私さ、タケってサヤのことが好きなのかと思ってた。
はあ？なんだよそれ。
だってタケ、サヤが転校してきた日、サヤのこと泣かせたアキトにめっちゃ怒ってたじゃん。
返して欲しかったら明日転校生に謝れ。お前が泣かしたんだからな。
That's right, you did get mad at me.
つまんねえことよく覚えてんな。
That was around the time that Hickory gave you that rolling sawback kick and sent you flying.
女のやることじゃねえよ。
Takeichi's face went a little pale. I may have struck a sore spot there.
まあ転校してきたしょっぱなはよ、なんての、まるで大女優様って雰囲気で田舎者の俺らを見下してる感じで。
なんてところに来てしまったのかしら。こんな田舎、美しいこの私にはふさわしくないわ。
すっげえ性格きつそうだったじゃん。
Saya never said that. Take was just making things up. Saya had always been timid. I'm sure she had been worried what others would think of her as different colored eyes, so she had worn sunglasses.
そうそう、サングラスかけてたんだよ。びっくりしたよね、最初見たとき。すごい子が都会からやってきたって村でも話題だった。
けどすぐそうじゃないって分かっちまった。あいつすげえ性格いいじゃん。
Ever since then, you had a thing for girls with bad attitudes. The more I said that, the more I felt like I was being rude to Naru. But that's what Takeichi seemed like, so who was I to judge? I had noticed she was a different person to deal with whenever she was around the Six Stars Club, but I didn't think she was a bad person.
懐かしいな。あの頃、いろいろあったよね。つうか、タケとアキとすんごい仲悪かったのに、いつの間にか親友みたいになっちゃってるし。
Yep.
Oh.
I was usually busy at the store, so I didn't hang out with friends too often, but Takeichi was probably my closest guy friend.
私がいなかった間にも、みんないろいろあったんだね。
Hickory sounded sad as she stared off at the sunset. You don't have to feel sad about it, though. You're back now, and there are still a lot of adventures to come.
あ、っていうかなんかやってんだろ。天文部最近にぎやかみたいじゃんか。
そうだよ。でっかい計画が進行中。こうご期待って感じだね。
お前にでっかい計画とか言われても不安しかねえぞ。
時が来たら表だって動き出すから。そしたらタケも協力してよね。
Takeichi did not look happy about what he was hearing.
しゃあねえな。
Takeichi didn't sound very pleased.
じゃ、俺こっちだから。
Alright.
練習試合頑張ってね。
おう。
Takeichi raised a hand in goodbye and headed off in the direction other than us. Hickory and I continued on to the station together after he was gone. I headed over to the other side of the store to lock up my bike, then noticed that Hickory looked like she wanted to say something.
さやだけどさ、もし本当に仲直りできそうになかったら言ってね。
Okay.
いや、さやのことだから絶対怒ってなんてないと思うんだけどさ。
I'll let you know tomorrow. I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't think Saya would show up at the store that night, but I had an excuse to go see her the next day. I have something I need to give her. Hanukkah had given me a DVD earlier that day. Toyota and the others at Nishai High had gone through all of their astronomy photos and burned the best ones onto a disc for me. They had asked me to give it to Saya since she was the one working on the website.
頑張ってね、アキト。応援してるから。
Hickory took my hand and squeezed it. It didn't really matter, but I didn't even get flustered when Hickory took my hand either. I guess that's just what it meant to be childhood friends. Arigato, Jane.
またね、バイバイ。
Hickory waved as she took off toward the station. I gave Kotaro a quick pat on the head as he dozed in front of the shop, and then headed up to my room to get ready for my shift. I set my pencil down with a sigh. I decided not to go to the shop and buy today and was studying in my room. I wasn't making much progress. I'd already eaten all of my reward chocolate as well. Remembering that morning again, I set my head down on my desk and covered it with my hands. Not only that, but he'd been rubbing my butt with that lint roller too. I knew that Akito hadn't meant to be mean, but I still got embarrassed when I thought about it. So much that I wanted to crawl into a hole and hide. It felt like he had been rubbing my butt with the lint roller like that on purpose. I wonder. I cupped my streaming hot face in my hands and shook it. Though it was true that Akito and I had been a different relationship now than we'd had before, it wasn't unthinkable that he would want to touch my butt now. He must be thinking at least a little bit about those kinds of things. I gave my butt a rub to see what the appeal was. It felt pleasantly smooth, but that was all. It had felt like a shock had run through my body when Akito touched me there, though. I should have been happy. This was exactly what I had wanted. Now that it had happened, though, I was scared. I was worried that I was doing something wrong again. My cell phone went off.
光からだ。明日、アキトが家に行くと思うから。嘘。
I had a few messages from him, but I hadn't read any of them yet.
アキトも悪気があったわけじゃないんだよ。だから怒らないでやって。もしどうしても怒りたいなら、いやんバカって一発ビンタでもして、それでチャラにしてあげて。しないよそんなこと。何？いやんバカって。
What did this have to do with Hickory anyway? It was my butt that Akito touched. I didn't think Hickory had to go to the trouble of telling me this. As I let out another sigh, my mother's voice came echoing up from downstairs.
さや、ご飯
I wasn't very hungry after eating so much chocolate, but I started putting away my books anyway. I decided to leave my phone on the desk, but I had a thought as I went to go downstairs.
人君、明日何しに来るんだろう。
As I went downstairs for dinner, I began to wonder what Akito might like for a snack while he was here. Saya seemed a little nervous as she set a cup of tea down on her desk for me. There was a plate of cookies sitting next to it, too. Arigato gozaimasu. I took one of the cookies. It was Saturday, so we didn't have school. I didn't have a morning shift at the shop today, so after I finished opening, I grabbed the DVD Hanuka had given me and handed it over to Saya. Here, these are some astronomy pictures from Nishai High. Saya made an obvious effort to keep her distance from me as she took the disc. It seemed like she was being extra careful to keep me from flipping her skirt up. It had been quite a while since I'd been in Saya's room. The last time was when Hickory and I had come over to hang out before she'd gone overseas. We'd come over a lot as kids to make our plans for the Mikusaki Astronomy Club. Where's your mom today?
お仕事だよ。
Suka. This was bad. Things were getting awkward. If this kept up, things would only get worse, so I decided to apologize. I'm sorry about yesterday.
どうしてあんなことしたの？
Saya, do you ever feel nervous around me?
したりしなかったんだよ。
But it doesn't make you feel nervous at all when I feed you pudding or hold your hand.
あんまりしないかな。
The look on her face told me that she hadn't thought about that until this point. We're dating now, but when we do things that a normal couple does, it doesn't feel special. Saya didn't say anything, but her expression was one of agreement. I was pretty sure she understood what I was trying to say. I wanted to make you feel more like we were boyfriend and girlfriend, not just childhood friends. She looked at me, her face turning slightly red.
してるよ。アキト君が気づいてないだけで。
I am? When do I make you feel that way?
それは秘密だもん。
Now she was bright red. Saya was blushing brilliantly, now and turned her face away. Right there, that was what I was trying to get you to do. I wanted to be able to make you feel like that more.
欲しいって言われても。というか、あっくん、
はい。
ドキドキさせたいからって、あんな方法はダメだと思うよ。女の子のお尻を触るなんて、いけないんだよ。あっくんじゃなきゃ、いやんバカってピンとして、お別れしちゃってるかも。じー。
Komenasai. I dropped my head in shame. In that case, what should I have done instead? She was clearly wondering why I was asking her this question.
そうだな。例えば、膝枕とか。
Okay, let's do that.
いや、そういうつもりで言ったんじゃ。
Now she was getting embarrassed. Seeing her get suddenly shy told me that this might work. I patted the bed next to me.
いやよ、そんな恥ずかしいの。
Saya turned her face away.
すごく落ち込んでる。わかったよ。少しだけだからね。
Hi. I looked up at Saya, my ears sparkling enthusiastically.
散歩行く時のポタちゃんみたい。
Saya looked a little hesitant as he sat down on the bed.
はい、どうぞ。
Here goes. Flop. I laid my head down on Saya's lap. I feel like I'm more embarrassed about this than you are.
あっくん耳まで赤くなってる。
No teasing. My comment came out a bit strong. I began wiggling my head in her lap as if I would have a regular pillow.
もう動いちゃダメ。
Why?
すぐ痛いんだもん。
Hearing that, it just made me want to move around even more.
いや、ダメだってば。こら、あっくん。
Saya put her head on my head.
ね、だよ。
Hi. Without thinking, I did what she said right away. I suddenly felt very calm.
あっくん、こうしてると可愛いね。おっきな犬みたい。
That doesn't really feel like a compliment. Should I start getting all excited like a dog would too?
ね、お利口にするの。
Saya looked pleased with herself as she began stroking my hair. Her soft touch soon had me feeling relaxed and pleased as well. I suddenly understood why Kotoru was so attached to her. Your lap is nice and warm.
そう？
I wish I had this at home. It would be great on cold nights.
じゃあ、私はあっくん抱き枕がいいかな。安心して寝られそうだよ。
I would be happy to see Saya's body pillow. Would it be alright with you if I ask an awkward question?
何？
Are you feeling nervous at all? Saya's face became serious for a split second.
してるよ。
You don't sound like it. I don't think you are at all.
してるよ。してるもん。
You don't look it. In fact, you look the exact opposite. You're completely relaxed.
そんなことないよ。ドキドキしてるよ。心臓の音、聞かせてあげたいくらい。
I reached my hand up. Saya was quick and knocked it away.
あっくん。
I was just going to feel your heartbeat to check. Saya didn't look happy. Comment aside.
あっくんだって同じじゃない。普通、女の子の胸、そんな簡単に触ろうとしないよ。
She was right. Since we were such good childhood friends, I hadn't thought about it twice. If you were to rate how nervous you are right now, what would you say?
ドキドキレベル3ってところかな。
On a scale of what?
最高でレベル10くらい。
Only a 3 out of 10? I was suddenly depressed, my head still resting on her lap. What do I have to do to make that number go up? My self-confidence as a man was in danger. I was starting to look like my best bet would be the lint roller after all.
それは。
Saya was fidgeting. She looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Maybe she needed some time to work out how to say it, so I remained silent and waited. I saw Saya's long hair suddenly fall down around my face, and before I knew what was happening, I felt something soft on my lips.
はい。おしまい。
Saya raised her head up, and I had never seen someone look so red. She looked like she was about to die from embarrassment.
ほらね。すごく照れてるでしょ。
Saya.
何？
That happened so fast I didn't really know what was going on. Can we try again?
もうおしまい。
Why not?
だって恥ずかしいんだもん。
That's the point. I'm trying to get your heart beating. And besides, I'd like to try that again, you know, for real. Looking like she was about to die, Saya covered my eyes with her hand so that I couldn't see anything. Then... Saya bent over from above until our lips met. They stayed like that for a while. I tasted those lips once before. She gently pressed her lips closer to mine. They felt incredibly soft and warm. After a few seconds, Saya pulled away. Her face was bright red as she stared dreamily at me with those two different colored eyes of hers. More. Saya, I'd like to kiss you some more. Saya gave me another embarrassed look before she reached up to tuck her hair behind her ear. She pressed a little harder this time. I pressed back, pecking at her lip in return. After some time, the kiss ended, and I asked Saya a question. What would you rate your level of nervousness now? We were no longer kissing, but our lips remained so close together that they were nearly touching. Saya's eyes were glistening as she spoke. From what she said, it would seem that she had gone completely off the scale. My head still on her lap, I pulled Saya toward me for another kiss. Saya was surprised and tried to pull away, but my arm kept her from moving. After a moment, though, she started kissing me back. We both fell into the kiss, pecking at each other's lips. Her hair fell down from behind her ear, and Saya tacked it back again with an annoyed sound. It just fell right back down, though. Fed up, she decided to ignore her hair and redoubled her focus on our kiss. Something welled up inside me, and the only way I knew how to get it out was by kissing. She wasn't trying to get away, but I held her even tighter. I wanted more of her lips, so I sat up. I pushed Saya down on the bed. Saya. I positioned myself above her, gazing down into her slightly moist eyes. Saya, you are amazingly cute. I continued staring into her eyes as I said this. As Saya lay in front of me, it was like I was seeing a side of her that I had never seen before. Being this close, I realized just how cute she was. She seemed a little scared, but it was also like she was expecting something. I couldn't hold myself back. Saya went rigid as I grabbed her and pulled her tight to me. Thump, thump, thump. Your heart is beating really fast. I could feel her throbbing heartbeat from where our bodies were touching. This isn't casual. I'm being completely sincere. Saya looked a bit uneasy at the serious tone of my voice and averted her gaze. She looked a bit frightened, yet... Still embracing Saya, I kissed her again. We continued kissing as we held each other on the bed. In my unending rain of kisses, Saya's face continued to grow even more red. Do you not like it? Saya shook her head. I'm going to keep doing even more embarrassing things with you. We are dating after all. Saya averted her eyes in embarrassment once more. I want to take all of your firsts. Is that all right? I don't just mean kissing. I mean everything embarrassing. Saya nodded. Saya sounded incredibly shy as he said this. Saya, are there any other firsts you want to try right now? Saya thought for a second, then turned bright red. If you thought of something, tell me. Too soon? You mean like marriage or something? What were you thinking of then? Saya looked a bit distraught and her eyes started to water a little.
もういいの。
Saya pulled me close again and kissed me to change the subject.
私が初めてキスした人はあっくん。今はそれだけでいいの。
For some reason, Saya looked a little upset. Saya, don't tell me.
何かの。
Were you thinking of something indecent? She went rigid at my question.
エッチなことって。
Yeah, something about 100 times more so than what we're doing right now.
知らない。
Saya looked away. I leaned down and whispered softly in her exposed ear. Did thinking about that get your heart racing?
しないもん。
That still didn't tell me if she'd been imagining something or not. What would you rate your level now then?
100。
She said it on a scale of 10. She was way off the charts now. I guess I just set a new high record.
もうバカ。
Saya puffed her cheeks out indignantly. It just made her look cuter than before. Let's just keep kissing then.
もうおしまい。
Why is that?
ドキドキレベルが限界を超えたからです。これ以上は体調にも良くないわ。
Just one more, please, Saya? Pretty, please?
おやすみ、あっくん。
Saya ignored me by pretending to sleep. Saya, hello? It appeared that she was serious about stopping. She would probably get mad at me if I forced another kiss on her, so I decided to quit. I guess it would be a waste to experience all our firsts in one day. She had definitely been imagining something a minute ago, so I continued pretending to be asleep, but her reddening face gave her away. Hmm?
あっくん、起きた？
Saya? At some point I had apparently fallen asleep as I lay there holding Saya. When I came to, Saya was stroking my hair. Come in, Saya, I guess I was just too comfortable.
いいよ。あっくんの寝顔見るの好きだもん。
Saya was playing with something in her other hand as she spoke. What's that?
私のお守り。
She apparently felt embarrassed about it. As soon as I said something, she closed her hand around it in an attempt to hide it. I'd never seen her with anything like it before.
これはね、私が絶対なくしたくないものなの。
Is that so? It sounded really important to her. Saya stroking my hair felt really nice, and I let myself sink into that feeling. I guess we're definitely boyfriend and girlfriend now. It felt a little embarrassing, but the warm, fuzzy feeling I got was more powerful. I puckered out my lips, pestering Saya for another kiss. She just shook her head slightly. Saya?
もう甘えん坊さんだね。
Saya smirked and let out a chuckle. She leaned down and kissed me. Her long hair felt good on my face.
はい、これで今日のキスは在庫切れです。
And when do you expect to get the next delivery?
わかんない。
Nani? The look on my face made it seem like the world was about to end, but Saya just grinned at me.
また明日いっぱいしようね。キス。
Saya's bashful smile in that moment was enough to last me until then. And with that, let us bring this particular video to an end. We've gotten pretty far into Saya's route, at least over 2 hours now, I think. So that seems to have been a good point, I think. Really, a, there was a lot of build up to it, and so it just seems like now that it's occurred, it's a good place to stop. We'll continue on next time from here. So for now, it's to Athamar7 of www.NotToTimCurry Studios saying so long, farewell, Avita, and good night.
Now.